Despia now finally supports shared targets, and this allows your application to receive any data from any other application. Let's say your user is in Safari and they want to share a link into your application to do something with it. Despia can now receive that link or even any image. So it can nicely now integrate with how users share content, and they can now share it into your Despia application, which is pretty cool. So if you take a look here at my screen, I have a little photo here, and if I share that photo, you see my application built in Despia appears as a shared target right inside of here. Now I want to show you how you can set that up, and more importantly, how you can actually work with that data. So let's get right started with this. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to go to our Despia application that we already have set up, and we want to go to targets. And we need to enable share into app. This will enable the share target dependency. And now, because we're adding a new dynamic target to our application, we need to go on Publish Application and run the build process again. Now, while this loads, we can just let it alone. Now, I already have it prepared on my phone. As you can see inside of here, we already have it set up. So, we can skip that process and just let it run in the background here. So now we need to set this functionality up in our application. And for that, we have some documentation which we will extend to make it easier available for you. And part of the documentation will be this video. So we need to create a variable tracker, which is a pretty common way how we observe data, native data, if we don't know when it will be available to our application. And it's a pretty lightweight way of doing so. So we use that same principle for our in-house in-app purchase and in-app subscriptions APIs and SDKs. And we're also now extending that for the share into app, because you want to register this event listener the moment the page opens so that you can look into that. But let's copy this here. There you go. And now we want to run this as a custom code block. Now you can do this in WeWeb, you can do this in Wisp, you can do this in Webflow, you can do this in Vue.js, in React, or in Nordcraft. In this example, I'm going to use Nordcraft just to make it a little bit simpler. And as you can see, I already had some previous setups in here. Let me just delete those so we can start out blank. But the nice thing about Nordcraft, this is why we use it for illustrating that, it's pretty close to HTML, so the principles in how we set this up here can be converted into WeWeb, can be converted into any framework that you're using, because it's just HTML and JavaScript. But we'll also make more videos on how to do those specific implementations, like with ShareTarget, for all kinds of platforms like WeWeb, like Nordcraft specifically, or like Wisp. But I just want to talk about the general principle here in today's video. So we want to think of how we want to receive that data. In this example, we want to receive an image. So we want to create a variable that allows us to receive this shared data. So I'm going to call this shared data, this variable, and it will start out empty, right? There's no data available right now. And now what we can do is we can go and create some action where we can register our listener that then can be attached on the page load. So I want to run a custom code block here. I'm going to call that shared data. And in this custom code block, now this really depends on your platform. In WeWeb, you would just write your code. In Nordcraft, you write it in their function. And in Wisp, you would just run it in a run function. But I'm just going to paste this variable tracker class that we have created here, and then under that variable tracker we're going to go back to our documentation where we have the listen for injections, where we can listen for the injected data, and we're just going to copy this, which will use our variable tracker system. So we're going back to our application, and under defining this variable tracker, which you could also define globally to make it more sustainable, right, and less resource intensive, we're now creating a new variable tracker. We're looking for shared data, which is the variable that we are injecting, that Despia is injecting into your application. It's then looking for that, and then right now we're doing a console log once we get it. Now, because it really depends on what platform you're in WeWeb you want to do a wwlib execute workflow to then get that data and funnel it back into a new workflow, which we'll make more videos about in detail how to work with that. In NoCode, you want to do a ctx.triggerActionEvent written in camel case. And then, for example, with Wist, you just want to set a Wist variable w shared data equals shared data, or whatever event system you're using with any other framework. Now we have it here as a console log because this just shows you that there's data coming out, and you can turn that console log into whatever your system uses to handle events and get data back. It could be a WeWeb workflow, it could be a NoCode context event, or in Bubble it could be an element context event, right? So now I'm just going to turn this console log into the kind of like the event, how my platform works. In NoCode it's ctx.triggerActionEvent, and I would define my event, but it really depends on what tool you're using. That's why we put it as a console log in the documentation, so you can customize that. And if you need any help with custom code, sometimes it can be tricky. You don't know how to customize the code that we give you in our documentation with the specific platform that you're using. We can help you with that. So just go to the Despia dashboard, click on customer support, and we will help you adjust the code to make it work with whatever platform or framework you are using. So now that we have this set up, we're now listening for the events with this callback event, right? So I'm now going back in my application, and on load, we want to run this custom code block. In WeWeb, you would just go on an onMount event or on an onAppLoad event and run that custom code block. In Bubble, you would do it on an element. In Wist, you would just do it on page load. It just really depends on what platform you're using. In NoCode, you have to turn into a block and then use that block somewhere. But I'm just going to attach this custom code here. And then I'm getting my callback event, where in other platforms you would trigger another workflow. Essentially, this is another workflow being triggered here. And then on callback, I'm setting my variable with the data coming back from this code, where in WeWeb, you would just write that variable with wwlib, same as in Wist. There you go. So now we're setting that. And now we can just, we're going to make a very ugly, simple example here. I'm going to make an image 1 by 1, and I'm going to do object fit cover, and I'm going to do width 100%, and I'm going to add some background color to make it a little bit gray so we can see that that's the image, and I'm going to make it 1 rem border radius. There you go. And then I'm going to show and hide it based on if shared data size is greater than 0. And this really, you can do this with whatever platform you're using. And now the source of the image will be the data URL that will be injected into the variable. And if you want to share text, it will be the same. It will just not be a data variable. It will just be like text shared into there. But it's pretty simple. So now we should be all fine. So let's try this out. Let's go back to our application here. Let's try sharing it into the Despia application. Let's take a look at that. And there you go. We got the image shared into our application. That's how simple that is. And I can close this. I can share it again. And there you go. We have it right inside of here. And this is how you can share data from outside of the Despia application into the Despia application. Even as an image, it works the same way with text. It's super simple. You just need to check one box and then do a little bit of custom code, which we have some great pre-written documentation, and we will create more examples and more videos on how to do this step by step for all kinds of other platforms. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for your trust in Despia. Look at this beautiful like native pop-up that your application will be rendered in. Look at that. How cool is that? You can now extend your application beyond the application itself and get third-party data into your application. How cool is that? All with the power of Despia's wonderful runtime and runtime version 3. Thank you so much for watching. If you need any help, especially with some of the custom code, we're here to help you. Just book a time if you want to have a meeting with us, or go to our customer support, and we are here to help you make sure that your application gets sent to the App Store and has all those amazing cool functionalities. Take care, and I can't wait to see what cool share extensions you're building.